Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been several months since I've posted. I was hoping to simply share some inspiration about either a Sunday school lesson or children's church lesson. It's found in Matthew chapter 7. It's Jesus's parable about the wise and foolish builders. So in Matthew chapter 7, Jesus talked about the wise builder who built upon the solid rock. And when the storms of this life came, when the winds raged, the house stood still and stood solid on that solid rock foundation. And he shares how that represents the person who not only hears the word of God, who hears the message, but they also apply it to their everyday life. And then he talked about the foolish builder who built his house upon the sand. And when the storms of life came, when the storm came and the winds raged, that house crashed. It was not able to withstand the storm. And that represents, as Jesus taught, about the person who hears the word, but they don't put it into practice. They don't live it out. So before the lesson, I ended up doing a really great object lesson, and all of these things can be found online, but hopefully the object lesson with the craft, with the game, ties in and gives you all some inspiration. So this of course represents the house built on that solid rock foundation, and the house that the foolish builder built upon the sand. So with this, it's best if you use cardstock and just some scissors, markers, and cut out your house. Find some rocks around your property, easy peasy, and then just stack them up a little bit more secure on the back side of the house. And then of course sand. Some of you all may have sand on your property. If not, Walmart sells it really cheap. And then simply just kind of put your house just right in the sand. And then 2 medium-sized pitchers with water, no more than maybe a cup or 2 at most. So 2 students can help you, and this ties into just that interactive object lesson where you're incorporating the kiddos and always sharing as far as opportunities to help out. So one represents this hurricane force, wind and strength, and they simply just pour it upon the house, and they'll notice that despite the water that's raging and the winds that's raging up against the house withstands the storm. Whereas the next kiddo that has their pitcher of water, and again it's only about a cup or 2 of water, when they pour it upon the house is going to ultimately end up falling, and that's a really great object lesson to tie into talking in Matthew 7 about the wise and foolish builder. And then as a craft, so with my lessons I always try to start with an object lesson that leads into about a 5 or so minute instructional about the lesson itself, and then we end up doing a craft that ties in to the lesson, and then later a game. So with this particular craft, it's simply popsicle sticks. Now the only thing that I pre-glued on their sheet was the rock foundation, and this is just a strip of construction paper. Took a marker to simulate the rocks. And then with me, I like to take quart-size bags and pre-package everything. I just find that it's easier. Some of you all may, if you have a helper in your class, or if you have a smaller class, you may just distribute things when you're there, because it does take a little extra time to pre-package things. But with this, just simply 5 regular popsicle sticks. You could either use the colored ones or the beige. They have those, cheap as can be at the dollar store, of course, $1.25 store. And then I pre-broke these popsicle sticks, and then they were able to glue their sand. And then once they glued everything, and then anytime I do a craft, I always have my example craft that I've created the week before as I'm preparing for the lesson taped up on the wall. That way they can always refer to my example craft. And then they can take markers, crayons, colored pencils, and create their little house with their chimney. And that's always the funnest to see just their creations come to life, especially when you have those younger, early elementary free. That's the exciting thing. So this craft, of course, ties into the lesson, the wise and foolish builder. And then for a fun interactive game that brings it all together, I had the kiddos line up, with plenty of space, at least about a 5-foot space in between two lines. One line represented the wise team, the wise builder team, and then the other line represented the foolish builder team. So the wise builder locked elbow to elbow as they stood in that straight line. And then this line, they were just shoulder to shoulder. And then there was enough space in between. So, that Hurricane Heather, I come through, I'm raging with winds blowing. And this is where you really want to put your body into it and really throw, throw the theatrics in there and really get into it about the storms and the cares of this life. The winds raging and the storms coming. It's raining cats and dogs. And then of course the wise team, they're elbow to elbow, they're locked arms. They might sway, just a little bit, but they're not going down. Why? Because they're rooted on the solid rock. Whereas the foolish builders, they ultimately ended up crashing to the floor when the Hurricane Heather stormed through with all of her might and with all of her wind and rain, hurricane force winds. And then they had the option to switch teams. So that's a fun little game that simply ties into the lesson. So any lesson that you have in mind, the way my mind works, I always think object lesson, the lesson itself, and then a fun craft, and then some type of game that ties everything in together. The one central lesson. Because the one thing about kiddos, they have to be hands-on, and we have to really make it interactive for it to stick. Because otherwise, it just doesn't, it doesn't click, with kiddos. And hey, just because, we can make learning about Jesus fun. We want to make it fun. Why is that? Because Jesus was fun. The kiddos loved him. They were drawn to him. So we can absolutely, make it a fun, interactive lesson. So I hope that inspires someone. And then, with you all, if anybody's facing any storms, trials, tribulations, I just want to encourage you. Ultimately, we know that it is the storms of this life that really truly strengthen our faith, because it's in those seasons of our life that we know firsthand. It's more than just words on a page, but it's then that we know firsthand that he's never going to leave us, that Jesus Christ is our rock foundation, that he sticks with us closer than a brother, that he's an ever-present help in the time of trouble, that he is always near. He is with us always. Never will he leave us, never will he forsake us, no matter what the situation looks like. And it could look dire, knowing that he is near. Thinking about the disciples on the ship, chaos was ensuing, but he was there. He was there. He was present with them, even, when they began to panic. And ultimately what else was within him, peace, knowing that in the midst of the storm, if we simply just reach out to Jesus, reach out to Christ, our peace is in him. In the midst of the chaos and in the storms of this life, our peace is found in Jesus Christ. So I just encourage anyone, whatever it is you might be facing, it could be financial, it could be housing related even. Maybe, someone's potentially facing, an eviction or foreclosure. It could be job related. Maybe someone's dealing with a layoff. It could be family related. Maybe you're dealing with a family member, dealing with substance use or alcoholism. You've tried and you've toiled, you've prayed and you've just exhausted yourself. Or it could be a son or a daughter. Whatever your storm is, just know that God is with you. God's with you in the midst of the storm. But it's applying these principles, even if we don't feel it, even on those days that we don't feel it, believing it, having the faith, speaking those things out loud, speaking those things faith, speaking those things that are not as though they were, having that faith that God is a limitless God. We cannot box him in. And it's very likely that he's taken us through the storm to develop something in us, that those trials are developing within us a perseverance that's only going to strengthen our character and our walk with him. And when we reach the other side, there's going to be a time that we share our testimony and our faith with someone else to encourage them. So I just want to encourage anyone, whatever you might be facing, stay strong and don't give up. And I hope that this lesson from Matthew chapter 7 about the wise and foolish builder, I hope it encourages and inspires someone. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.